So today, of course, is the day. Trump has or not or already will be inaugurated. We'll probably be doing a video about it either today, maybe tomorrow. I don't know. It's always worth going over his speech, especially his inauguration speech, because we'll probably get maybe an idea. No doubt he will have signed some executive orders almost immediately on entering office. So we'll probably have an idea on those tariffs. Yeah, fun, isn't it? But there is no doubt that, of course, 2025 compared to 2016 is a lot more dangerous and volatile world than it is before. And Trump will be expected to respond to a whole series of things that are going on out there in the world right now. Most importantly, what is going on in the Baltic Sea? Because for the past year, there has been an increased attempt of sabotage of undersea cables, from gas pipelines to internet cables to telecommunication lines, you name it. This has been an increased problem that all these countries in the Baltic are seeing. These are very, very important lines to international trade, IT services, security. There was a case where Gotland lost its whole internet for like 24 hours. And now people, as we know, these are Russian ships, Russian ghost ships, in some cases, doing this sabotage. And there's been questions now raised by NATO. Should Article 5 now include sabotage? Because we've seen not only, of course, it's cases in the Baltic Sea, but we've had cases in the UK of sabotage. The attempted assassination of the Rheinmetall CEO. So could there be some more sabotage attempts this year? And maybe we see some successful sabotage attempts. Maybe there isn't another attempt on the CEO of Rheinmetall. Maybe they get lucky this time. What then happens? Does that trigger Article 5? Because that's what NATO are talking about. And recently, there is a big now flotilla of NATO vessels assembling to now start to more closely watch and monitor the undersea cables in the Baltic. And ultimately, instantly, this will be one of the many, many instances where Trump will be asked to respond to some of these things. And hey, this is putting the NATO alliance to the test. And Trump might not be able to easily leave NATO, but there is a ton of stuff he could do to undermine NATO, and maybe not involving America in this, or turning around and saying, I don't think it's worth America's time in protecting these, vital undersea cables that are important for Europe. As we've always been saying, if America turns around and says, we aren't interested in European security, there goes a lot of assumptions about what European defense strategy, relying on America to potentially come in under any potential invasion or anything like that. It's worrying. It's very worrying. But we're going to go into this as well, because I think this is important to cover as well. This ongoing sort of monitoring the situation going on in the Baltic Sea. But before we do that, please do remember to click the like, share, and of course the subscribe button. Down below, there are links to my Patreon page. There's the YouTube thank you button. And of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well as the Buy Me Coffee link, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much to all those people who do help and support the channel. Even if you do, just click the like and share button. So let's crack on then with this. So NATO now flotilla assembles just off Estonia to protect undersea cables in the Baltic Sea. So a NATO flotilla, likened to the security camera of the Baltic, has now assembled just off the coast of Estonia as the military alliance now seeks to protect European undersea cables and pipelines from sabotage. And remember, there is a very important pipeline here. A very important pipeline. And that is, of course, the gas pipeline from Norway that goes down into northern Germany, I believe. And if that gets sabotaged, that could have big, big ramifications. big ramifications if that gets sabotaged. So obviously you can see why this is a very tempting target for Russia. So in a move that will ratchet up the struggle, of course, with Russia over the seabed that has now largely been largely covert until now, a Dutch frigate and naval research ship, as well as the German minesweeper, have now arrived in Tallinn under a thick January sea fog. A French minesweeper is expected, and of course, more NATO vessels are on the way to support this joint effort, which again is what you want to see: Europe coming together to protect its shared security interests. Called the Baltic Sentry, it was agreed on in Helsinki just last week. This group will now grow in the near future, with other ships joining us. Soon, in the end, we'll have about 6 or even 7 ships, said Commodore Eric Kolvik, the Belgian head of the Mine Countermeasures Task Force that has been now drawn into the Baltic scenery. We will, of course, in the first case, function now as security cameras of the Baltic Sea, which means that nobody can undertake any actions against critical underwater infrastructure without having us see them and being able to react in a proper way. The latest incident, which triggered NATO response, took place on the Christmas Day when the Einstein 2 power cable between Finland and Estonia and 4 other data cables were damaged. And according to Finnish authorities, by an oil tanker, the Eagle S, by dragging its anchor along the seabed for over 60 miles until it snagged on the cables. So, as you can see, this sabotage is taking place quite regularly. And I'd be interested to know how many people actually realized that incident, the last incident that happened on Christmas Day. It's something that I missed until this. So the Eagle S was then ordered into Finnish territorial waters and then boarded by special police squads descending then from helicopters. It is now detained off the small port of Pulvu, east of Helsinki, and the ship was of course found to be missing an anchor that was later now salvaged from the seabed, where it appears to have now separated from its chains. And of course, 9 of the crew have now been banned from leaving Finland while the inquiry is underway. The Eagle S now embodies the grey amorphous nature of the very tense situation in this corner of the Baltic, where it is now very hard to distinguish between careless accidents and deliberate acts of hybrid warfare. The 74,000-ton Chinese-built tanker has had three previous names and is now sailing under the flag of the Cook Islands, owned by a corporation in Dubai, but now managed by an Indian company with a Georgian captain and a Georgian Indian crew. Again, the incredibly murky world of shipping right there for you on that. The ship was now reportedly on its way from the Russian port of Ust-Liga with 30,000 tons of petrol bound for Turkey. NATO and Finnish authorities believe it is part of now Russia's shadow fleet of vessels from around the world, quietly commissioned by Moscow to transport Russian oil in defiance of the sanctions imposed after Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. The now working theory of the Finnish police is that these ships and crews that can be then commissioned to bust sanctions can also now be hired to carry out sabotage. The Eagle S Dubai's owned owner, Calvelia, has now denied these allegations and challenged the ship's detention through its Finnish lawyer, Herman Lubig, saying the vessel and its master, which I represent, has not been provided with any information of these investigations, Lubig said in a written statement. We have not been given any decisions or even legal basis for boarding, of which took place over just 3 weeks ago, and I would dare to call this an action now of hijacking. Lubig said the seized Eagle S now convened the law of the sea and the Finnish criminal code. The Finnish authorities did not have justification whatsoever to board the vessel and conduct investigations, full stop, the lawyer wrote. It has also now emerged that the Eagle S was also involved in an incident just off the Dutch coast back in November, where it was now allegedly observed to sail to and fro over the Atlantic Crossing 1, a telecommunications cable linking the US to Britain, the Netherlands, and Germany. Think about that. That is a telecommunications cable which links the US to Britain, Netherlands, and Germany. That is an incredibly important communication cable. Bit weird that you were just, sailing back and forth over this, quite important piece of infrastructure, isn't it? Hmm. And of course, it gets quite worrying where these communication cables get sabotaged in this way. Because again, NATO are now talking about this as well. If you see this act of sabotage, that's Article 5. The shipping website, Lloyd's List, then cited an anonymous source as saying that the tanker was found to be, quote, loaded with spying equipment, including sensors that had been dropped over the side of the ship. And according to Finnish authorities, however, no unusual equipment was found when it was boarded back in December. The Eagle S incident is now the third time in recent months that critical infrastructure on the Baltic has been damaged in now murky circumstances. Again, like I say, once an accident, sure, you can excuse that. Twice, bit suspicious, but third time, you know, especially with it, doing a very, sailing over one of an incredibly important telecommunications cable. So back here. In October, of course, 2023, the Baikal communicator gas pipeline between Finland and Estonia was now sheared by an anchor of a Hong Kong flagged container ship, the new Polar Bear. The Chinese government conducted an investigation, admitted that the ship was responsible, but claimed it was an accident. On the 20th of November, another Chinese bulk carrier, the Yingpeng 3, was accused of dragging its anchor over two fiber optic communication cables, one running between Finland and Germany, and the other between Lithuania and the Swedish island of Gotland, which is said at the beginning, where Gotland just ended up losing its entire internet for like 24 hours. And again, the Chinese government carried out its own investigation, but despite a pledge of cooperation, Beijing did not allow Swedish investigators on board. And the Yingpeng thing left the Baltic while the Swedish inquiry was still underway. Two incidents have now raised questions of whether China had to become a protagonist in the hybrid warfare in the Baltic. And this is where I said at the beginning, and you look at this other thing the other video we said yesterday about how we should be looking at, our alliance structure, or how we should be approaching, of course, Donald Trump. We can say, well, look, China, along with Russia, is getting involved in sabotaging vital, European infrastructure in the Baltic Sea. And you can make the case to Trump that it's not just China that is their enemy, it is Russia too. And that they are both part of the same threat, and that supporting Ukraine is vital, not only for European security, but for American security as well. So back to this. One can only say that these incidents of the undersea infrastructure that is damaged are, of course, not very frequent worldwide. However, in the Baltic Sea, we have not witnessed such a string of episodes with the most important strategic infrastructure, gas pipelines, power lines, major data cables since it became operational. Thomas Javilkas, head of the studies at Tallinn's Institute for Center of Defense and Security, said, the severing of the Elkas 2 on Christmas Day did not lead to immediate power cuts as supplies have been diverted elsewhere from the grid, but it will take months to repair, during which times the region's power supply will be significantly more fragile. Again, this is why you do this. You weaken these things. It takes time to repair. They can now potentially do other things, which means that, maybe there will be blackouts in Estonia. This, of course, breach came at the very same time of heightening tensions leading up to the February the 8th, where three Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, will sever one of the last vestiges of their distant Soviet past when they decouple their power networks from the Russian energy grid, synchronizing now with a European energy grid instead of a power link, instead now linking through to Poland. Moscow would, of course, be very certainly interested in disrupting the process of our desynchronization, perhaps now even preventing it from happening, raising its costs, and, of course, discrediting the Baltic government's attempts by causing chaos, confusion, and fear, Jamakus said. The prospect of power blackouts is, of course, a chilling one. The Dutch head of NATO and major marine group assigned to protect the seabed and infrastructure, Commodore Alderweireld, had few doubts about who was responsible for the East Link 2 rupture, saying that it's something that is still being evaluated, but we're always keeping the possibility open in our mind, Farmer said on Friday, speaking on the bridge of the Dutch frigate Tomp, moored in Tallinn. Asked whether this was another possibility, he replied, yes, aliens. When the Baltic Century was agreed by NATO members back in November of their summit meeting in Helsinki, the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte described the ranging incidents now as possible sabotage, underlining the stakes in protecting now undersea energy and internet cables. Nothing that 1.3 miles and kilometers of undersea cables were now responsible for an estimated $10 trillion worth of financial transactions every day. So as you can see, these are incredibly important, these cables, but you can also see just how vulnerable these undersea cables and networks are. So this is a case of one nation can't monitor these things all the time. It has to be a combined European effort. So Rudd said that ship captains must now understand the possible threat to our infrastructure will have consequences, including possible boardings, impounding, and arrest. The Naval Task Force assembling in Tallinn can draw now on NATO members' intelligence of shipping surveillance from all air and space and underwater sonars, are repurposed now from hunting mines, drone submersibles, and a new generation of undersea underwater sensors. Any ship that is leaving St. Petersburg will know that it is being followed, Croc said. And if that ship has the intention to undertake any unlawful actions, it will think twice. So, again, good that this is happening, but what's Trump's response going to be to this? As we said, Trump is entering now the White House in an increased period of aggression here. It's more dangerous than it was in 2016. That is certainly true. And Trump will be expected to respond to things like this going on in the Baltic. Whereas you said, those undersea cables are very vital to, the European economy. $10 trillion a day. If one of those cables goes down, or even permanently, or takes a long time to do, this is very worrying indeed. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.